now give the floor to the representative of Iceland.
Mr. President, thank you for calling this meeting on UNRWA, an issue of urgency and importance. And let me also thank Mr. Lazzarini and Mr. Egeland for their inputs this morning. The long-awaited ceasefire in Gaza is an opportunity. In the short term, to bring urgent humanitarian aid. In the longer term, to help Palestinians rebuild their lives after nearly a year and a half of a devastating war. Gaza has been left in ruins. Most homes and businesses are destroyed. Groundwater is seriously polluted. Schools have been turned into emergency shelters and hospitals flattened. Reconstruction will be a mammoth task. We, the international community, have failed the people of Gaza for over a year, especially the children of Gaza. Those who have survived are losing the second school year in a row. We must not fail them again. We welcome the rapid engagement by OCHA, as well as the swift deployment of aid with more than 5,160 trucks carrying aid in the first 8 days after the ceasefire. Some Gazan families can now finally have full rations and 3 meals a day, as opposed to 1 bag of flour for the entire month. This is a great improvement, but the humanitarian situation remains precarious. The war has left 2 million people homeless, without an income and fully dependent on food assistance. Several other UN agencies, including UNICEF, UNOPS and UNDP, are operating and laying out impressive strategies for further assistance and the rebuilding of Gaza. However, these key UN agencies and programs work hand in glove with UNRWA. UNRWA's know-how, capabilities and experience is unmatched. So is the level of trust the agency enjoys with Palestine refugees. No other agency can navigate the field as they can, and therefore UNRWA is a vital partner for any agency which wishes to have an impact. Under these circumstances, a total halt to the operations of UNRWA, the most centrally placed humanitarian organization responding to the needs of Palestine refugees in the Middle East, will have devastating consequences. Israel must allow UNRWA to operate in the humanitarian space and secure its involvement in a transitional process. Israel, as the occupying power, has a legal obligation to ensure the well-being of civilians in the territory. This includes securing the continuation of education, health, and other services beyond the end of this month, when the law takes effect. Iceland has repeatedly voiced its concerns over the Israeli legislation against UNRWA and consistently called for respect of international humanitarian law. At the center of our concern is the well-being of the population in Gaza. All parties involved, including the Israeli authorities, must take a pragmatic approach in order to ensure the provision of urgent humanitarian aid and the rebuilding of infrastructure and communities for the long term. This includes allowing unrestricted movement of UNRWA staff, maintaining the deconfliction of UNRWA installations, and allowing the continued access of aid that UNRWA has been distributing in the West Bank and Gaza. The unilateral action against UNRWA also threatens to undermine any prospect of a two-state solution. The organization has delivered essential services and humanitarian aid under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. The end of its mandate should be a part of a negotiated settlement between the people of Israel and Palestine. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Iceland for the statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Senegal.
Thank you, Mr. President. From the outset, sir, I would like to congratulate you for the leadership with which you are heading up the Algerian presidency of the Security Council. I'd also like to thank you for having convened this meeting on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question, with a particular focus on the difficult times that the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees is currently experiencing. This is also a good opportunity to pay tribute to Mr. Philippe Lazzarini, Commissioner General, and his devoted team that make extreme sacrifices to protect innocent lives. Ms. Lazzarini, you gave an enlightening briefing on many regards on the uncertain future facing the agency and the growing threat of the unprecedented human tragedy that Gaza is likely to see if the mandate of the agency is indeed prevented. This plea was in favour of necessary support that we owe UNRWA. Mr. President, we really do not need to reiterate how important UNRWA is in terms of providing a whole range of services on healthcare, education, food, shelter, inter alia to the Palestinians. At the same time, whilst my delegation commends rightly the ceasefire agreement and the resumption of the provision of humanitarian assistance, it is still the case that the humanitarian disaster is still raging in Gaza because of unilateral measures, including attacks against civilians that have been taken by the Israeli authorities. This deplorable situation is extremely worrisome and undermines a vital agreement for Gazan civilians that has been the fruit of several months of diplomatic efforts. So the Security Council mustn't fall into the trap of non-document allegations of a lack of neutrality that barely hide the desire to continue broadly condemned illegal practices that have been broadly condemned by the international community that is committed to peace and justice. It is more urgent than ever that the Security Council shoulders its responsibility in order to ensure scrupulous compliance with the ceasefire and also to call upon Israel to respect IHL and to cease all unilateral measures that seek to prevent the implementation of UNRWA's mandate. This is both a legal obligation and a moral duty to prevent a dangerous precedent from being set that might undermine all UN agencies and missions throughout the world. Nowhere else will the UN be guaranteed to implement its mandate. And so what we from Palestinians in Jerusalem and the West Bank humanitarian aid at a time when they need it the most and destroying more than 75 years of sacrifice and joint striving for humanitarian works. The unanimous political support for all member states to UNRWA is absolutely crucial because UNRWA fuels hopes for peace and reconstruction for these people who have suffered so much and who've lost everything. In conclusion, my delegation calls for the implementation of the measures stipulated by the International Court of Justice in its various decisions and calls upon the international community to invest in a permanent ceasefire to defend UNRWA and also to defend UNRWA to best protect the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Thank you very much indeed.
I thank the representative of Senegal for the statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.
La séance est levée pour un moment.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The 9,853rd meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation concerning the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representative of Angola, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Guatemala, Rwanda, Senegal, South Africa, Uruguay, and Zimbabwe to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. On behalf of the Council, I welcome Her Excellency Ms. Therese Kayikwamba Wagner, State Minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation and Francophonie of the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
C'est notre ministre qui va parler maintenant là. Voilà.
In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite Ms. Viviane van de Peer, Deputy Special Representative for Protection and Operations of the United Nations Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. I now give the floor to Ms. Viviane van de Peer.
Yeah, it's on and the mic is off. Can you hear them?
Yes.
You have the floor, madam.
We're having some difficulties here, but I hope you can hear me. Good afternoon, Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council.
Hi, it's Monusco. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
us?
I can hear you, yes. It's a little low, but I can hear you. Can we zoom in the camera?
Zoom in the camera. More. More.
Some.
No sound.
Yeah, get the camera there. Yeah. Okay, he's moving right now.
Okay, let go.
Yes, the acting first commander and she cannot hear.
We cannot hear them. The president is talking to me.
Okay, you're welcome. Anasema anakuchia mnafuata kwa kamera yake. Anasema anaonekana kwa kamera toke. So adjust need to talk to what. Katana kamera yetu mimi nilikuwa. Amesema kamera iko sawa.
Cannot hear the president.
Hi, Monusco. They're waiting for you to speak.
On entend très bien.
Thank you, President. We apologize deeply for these technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
You have the floor, madam.
Thank you. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, Madam Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Rwanda, and other distinguished ambassadors and representatives. Thank you for convening an emergency meeting of the Security Council to follow up on the situation in Goma. Allow me to share with you our understanding of the current situation and the implications for MONUSCO. The escalating clashes in eastern DRC have resulted in massive displacement. More than 178,000 people fled Kalehe territory when the M23 took over Minova, with more than 34,000 of them seeking refuge in already overcrowded existing IDP sites in and around Goma. This surge has exacerbated an already dire humanitarian situation and also a protection situation, overwhelming Goma's infrastructure and compounding challenges related to water, electricity, and medical services. Despite the deliberations and the appeal by member states at the Emergency Security Council meeting on 26 January, the M23 RDF launched an attack on Goma using heavy direct and indirect fire within hours after the conclusion of the Security Council meeting. These attacks continue to ravage the city, killing, injuring, traumatizing, and displacing civilians and exacerbating the crisis. In accordance with its obligations under international humanitarian law, during the last few days, MONUSCO has received a large number of people seeking refuge, including officials and various elements who have surrendered their arms, which underscores once again the critical role of peacekeeping in such a volatile environment. The mission's human rights component also continues to receive requests for individual protection measures from human rights defenders and civil society organizations, and is working internally and with external partners to ensure their safety. However, MONUSCO's bases are not able to accommodate the large number of surrendering elements and civilians seeking refuge. Moreover, our bases are not safe themselves. 2 mortars fell in MONUSCO bases and compounds in the last 3 days, as well as countless bullets. Installations of former police unit staff in Jambar camp have been destroyed and burned. MONUSCO is storing voluntarily relinquished or abandoned weapons in accordance with international standards. MONUSCO is taking concrete steps to secure these weapons surrendered by various fighting elements to avoid any possible scenario where the mission could be put under pressure to hand over those weapons to any group. Casualty evacuation efforts remain a significant challenge. During the fighting in Sake, which began 4 days ago, peacekeepers were seriously injured. We continue to do our utmost to ensure timely evacuation of injured peacekeepers and other casualties to our level 3 hospital in Goma, despite continuing challenges. The fighting of the past week has also severely hampered supply convoys and consumed many resources held by MONUSCO's units. Damage to camps, including water tanks, generators, and vehicles, has further exacerbated the situation. Many troops are now running out of critical equipment, especially water, food, medical supplies, and blood. In some camps, fuel shortages have rendered generators inoperable, affecting communications equipment. In addition, a significant number of non-combatants have sought refuge in MONUSCO's camps in need of food, water, and medical care, further straining already limited supplies. The MONUSCO warehouse at the airport has been looted, further depleting supplies. The courthouse in Goma has been looted, and I can continue with this list. The proliferation of weapons in Goma poses a significant risk as combatants blend into the civilian population and abandoned military depots are looted by civilians. The mass influx of internally displaced persons without shelter, the separation of families, the proliferation of armed elements, and the escape of prisoners following a breakout from Goma prison increase the vulnerability of women and children to sexual and gender-based violence. Therefore, in line with the appeal of the Bishop of Goma, we call on all parties and the population to guarantee the protection of life and access to basic services for all, and to prevent sexual violence. Armed clashes in Masisi, Rutshuru, and Nyiragongo continue to result in civilian casualties and displacements, further escalating the humanitarian crisis. Electricity and water supplies remain disrupted in Goma, and medical facilities are completely overwhelmed. Due to the intensity of the ongoing combat and the proximity of the front lines, humanitarian operations have been suspended or readjusted. Immediate action is required to alleviate the suffering of civilians and enable life-saving humanitarian efforts to proceed. Moreover, ethnically motivated attacks in a region with a very sensitive history need to be taken seriously. In the past 4 days, the Human Rights Office has documented at least one case of ethnically motivated lynching in an IDP site in Goma, as well as physical and verbal violence against journalists in Goma, all due to their perceived ethnic identity. In light of the ongoing crisis, we urgently require the end of jamming and spoofing, as well as the establishment of humanitarian corridors between Goma, Minova, and Bukavu. This will allow the resupply of essential items, the rotation of humanitarian staff, and the safe movement of civilians. We also appeal for the establishment of high-level diplomatic channels to ensure that critical airports, border points, and humanitarian access routes are reopened without delay. We stress that military action cannot resolve this conflict. It is imperative that all parties cease hostilities and commit to political dialogue in order to prevent further civilian suffering. Resuming the Luanda process is of the utmost urgency to ensure a path towards de-escalation and to avert the looming threat of a third Congo war. We remind all parties of their obligation to uphold international humanitarian law and stress that attacks on United Nations peacekeepers may constitute war crimes. The degree of suffering that the population in Goma and its environments is enduring is truly unimaginable. Let us please draw on our humanity and do our utmost to bring an immediate end to such levels of violence and suffering. In conclusion, the situation in Goma requires urgent and coordinated international action. Despite the significant challenges, MONUSCO continues to play a vital role in this crisis in the Eastern DRC and has proven to be a beacon for myriad vulnerable groups seeking protection. However, the mission is challenged in ensuring the safety of its staff and premises, which has been severely impacted by the heavy direct and indirect fire used in these last few days, and to address the logistical, human rights, and humanitarian challenges we are all facing to ensure the mission's continued effectiveness. We call on all parties to prioritize the protection of civilians, open humanitarian corridors, and work towards a sustainable and peaceful resolution of the conflict. I thank you very much.
I thank Ms. Vivian
La
Van de
MONUSCO
Peer
appelle tous les
for the
partenaires
statement.
à pouvoir
I now give the floor
pour
to those members
cesser ces conflits.
of the Council who wish to make
Ça, c'est l'Assemblée
statements.
générale
And I give the floor
extraordinaire
to the representative of France.
de sécurité. Il y a le
Monsieur le
représentant de la
Mr.
France
President, I wish to thank
qui va parler.
the Deputy Special Representative of the Secretary General for her briefing. I welcome here among us the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Security Council is meeting once again due to the sustained deterioration of the situation in North Kivu. As we speak, M23 is taking control of Goma with the active support of Rwanda. That must set alarm bells ringing for this council, as it did 12 years ago. The risk of regional spillover is real. The seizure of Goma brings with it major risks for the security of civilians and prompts the displacement of hundreds of thousands of people. It is vital to put an end to that situation. France firmly condemns this offensive. M23 must immediately cease the offensive and withdraw from territories over which it has seized control. Support for armed groups by all parties must stop. Our priority must be renewed support for a ceasefire and the resumption of dialogue. There is no military solution to this conflict. France reaffirms its solidarity with the Democratic Republic of the Congo and its unwavering commitment to upholding the DRC's territorial integrity and sovereignty. Here and elsewhere, compliance with the UN Charter is the order of the day. France continues its engagement at the highest level in order to resume a political process. We hail regional mobilization in this regard, and we hope that the African Union PSC meeting today and the EAC summit tomorrow will foster progress towards a sustainable, lasting peace. Dialogue, which has been initiated within the Luanda and Nairobi process, must resume as a matter of urgency. France supports these regional processes and will call upon parties to uphold their commitments entered into within the Luanda process. These are as follows: the withdrawal of Rwandan troops from Congolese territory and the implementation of the plan to dismantle the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the FDLR. Finally, France wishes to forcefully reaffirm its support for MONUSCO. MONUSCO's mandate was unanimously renewed on the 20th of December. We condemn attacks waged by M23 against MONUSCO. These attacks have claimed the lives of several blue helmets in recent days. We convey our condolences to their family members. Personnel and undertakings of the United Nations must be respected. Attacks against blue helmet civilians and humanitarian personnel are liable to constitute war crimes. Comprehensive humanitarian access must be guaranteed. Violations of IHL and human rights must be condemned. France once again condemns the deployment of surface-to-air missiles and the scrambling of GPS signals in areas under M23 control with the direct support of the Rwanda Defence Force. MONUSCO must be able to continue to do its work to protect civilians. The situation in Goma has major humanitarian and political ramifications. We will ensure that this council remains fully mobilized in view of just how grave this situation is. I thank you.
I thank the representative of France for their statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, thank you for convening this emergency meeting of the Security Council. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the 8 members, Algeria, Guyana, Somalia, and my own country, Sierra Leone. At the outset, we pay tribute to the brave peacekeepers, MONUSCO personnel, and other UN staff who are risking their lives in pursuit of peace and the protection of civilians in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. We also honor those peacekeepers and SAMI DRC personnel who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service of peace. Our deepest condolences go to their families and to the government and people of South Africa, Malawi, and Uruguay. We express our gratitude to Ms. Viviane van der Per, Deputy Special Representative for Protection and Operations in MONUSCO, for a comprehensive briefing on the dire situation on the ground. We also welcome the participation of Her Excellency Therese Kaikwamba Wagner, State Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the DRC, as well as the representatives of all other participating states in this meeting. Mr. President, we commend this convening of this emergency meeting. In less than 72 hours, the Security Council has convened for a second time to address the rapidly evolving situation in Eastern DRC. The A3 Plus is deeply concerned about the volatility of the situation, the ongoing conflict, and the resulting stalemate, which presents a high risk of a broader regional conflict. We have listened attentively to Ms. van der Per's briefing, and it is clear that the people of Goma, and indeed the wider Congolese population, deserve more than a temporary cessation of the M23/AFC.
Souhaitons la bienvenue également aux représentantes et représentants de tous les autres États participant à la présente séance. Monsieur le Président, nous applaudissons la convocation de cette séance d'urgence. En moins de 72 heures, le Conseil se réunit une deuxième fois pour évoquer...
Et chaque Congolais a un